Hello, I'm Georgette Steinberg here at my home in McHenry County, Illinois. This year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote and gave us a voice in our government. In a moment, we will talk to local women and hear their stories about voting and political action. But first, let's look back and remind ourselves that voting wasn't always an option for women. Before 1920, women fought hard through peaceful protests, civil disobedience, and lots of community organizing. They worked hard and didn't give up until the 19th Amendment was ratified. We will now hear from women who live and vote in McHenry County. We're talking with Cynthia Canner. Do you vote regularly and why?
Yeah, I do. I have voted in every election, and I've been an election judge, so I just did that recently in the past several years. I've done it at least once. I may have done it twice, and now I'm forgetting. I am not an election judge this coming election because of COVID, and I have a son with type 1 diabetes, and I'm just sitting this one out, but hopefully people will step up and volunteer. It's an amazing experience. It's a really interesting experience.
Why do you think women should vote?
We're individuals and humans. We're part of the human species. Anybody who's human, no matter your gender, your color, your ethnicity, where you live, should vote. And one of the problems is where to vote. And so, when people don't have access to a convenient polling place, which can be purposeful, is a huge problem.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, maybe that I haven't asked you about?
I think hitting on, the young people voting is so important, and just making sure that people educate themselves about, who's running, and what their platform is, and supporting people who share your values is really important. And I think access. I think everyone has a part in making sure that our elections are easily participated in, that people have the opportunity to do that. There's a lot to advocate for still. So young people who are going to be aging up and running things, running the country, running local government, should have things in mind about what kind of changes do we need, like a national holiday for voting, maybe no more electoral college, one person, one vote. Let's, look at that. There are a lot of different things that can make our voting experience probably more meaningful. Gerrymandering is a big issue. So I think if you stopped any 18-year-old on the road, they wouldn't really know what that means. So education about these things that have pushed our voting system along, young people need to understand what that means.
We're talking with Kiara Connor. Hello.
Hi.
And can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I'm 18. I just graduated from Richmond Burton High School. I plan on attending DePaul University in Chicago this fall, and I'm a photographer.
Have you involved yourself in politics, and if so, how?
Yeah, I've always been very active in my community about, advocating for women's rights, for LGBTQ rights, all those sorts of things. But recently, my friends and I, we organized a protest within our community, which was one of the first protests I think our community's really ever held. And that was really powerful to us to see our community come together and, support each other. And probably a moment that I'll never forget, because growing up in a community where it's majority right-wing, seeing people come together to support the LGBTQ community and people of color was just so powerful to me, and it was a really great experience.
What do you say to young women as yourself that aren't voting?
I think that if you aren't voting, you have to ask yourself why. A a lot of kids my age feel like it's not something that they need to be involved in or something that's for them to be involved in. Adults tend to take control of the conversation when it comes to politics a lot of the times, and kind of make us feel like we're not educated enough, we're not old enough, we're not smart enough. But the youth is so powerful, and I think that it's so important that we make our voices heard at the polls. So if you aren't voting, I really hope that you look into, why you aren't voting and educate yourself and hopefully make a change.
Can you talk a little bit more about the rewards of actively participating in politics?
Yeah. So to me, being able to be active in our community makes me feel like I have a little bit of control over what happens around me and what happens to those around me. And I want other people to feel safe within our community, regardless of their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation, the color of their skin. I feel like everyone should be able to feel safe in our community, and knowing that you have an opportunity to make people feel safe by being active in our community is something that's really gratifying.
We're talking with Valerie Carbajal. Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a Mexican immigrant. I've been living in the United States for 35 years. So I'm a licensed clinical therapist, and I immigrated to this country with knowing no English. So I went to school here and raised a family at the same time, worked full time, and finally, in 2004, I became a USA citizen.
Were politics and social issues talked about around the table, dinner table, or at home?
My parents were farmers, and I remember hearing about politics. Kind of my father became like a village mayor. So they would bring, candidates. They had to make food. It was just a big deal. But that's, for the village, bringing those candidates. To kind of campaigning.
How old were you when you first voted?
I was 39. It was right 1 year after I became a USA citizen.
Why did you vote?
Being an immigrant, you go through so many hurdles to become a USA citizen. When I came to this country, I was undocumented. It took us so many years for me and my husband to become legal. So one of the first things that I recall say, okay, now it's my right to vote. I can make a change. Changes. Instead, I used to hear one vote counts. Yeah. So, but then I became interested. It said, if we're going to be part of this society, let's work on something. Let's make it work. Let's be part of it.
Have you participated in politics yourself?
I was a community activist, and we lobbied. We went and knocked at doors. For getting Latinos out to vote. We did that for maybe 2 months before elections, for when Obama was a candidate.
We're talking with Dolores Manny. Hi, Dolores.
Hi.
Have you participated in politics in our area yourself, or maybe some social issues in our area yourself?
Well, in a couple of ways. Of course, the choice issue is a big one with me, and I got involved with that in the late 80s, after Ronald Reagan and after H.W. Bush. I worked with some other women who were very involved and had started a group out here called McHenry County Citizens for Choice. That was a big one, and I worked with them and became president of the group. That, of course, got me involved somewhat politically. And this whole thing that's happening now is very disturbing in that people don't seem to remember that in a democracy we all work together, and that some of us have one idea and some of us have another. But the idea of democracy is to put those ideas together and come up with the best solution for different problems, and not to fight and expect you're going to get your way all the time. So I don't know. It's education is going to be our salvation, I think. We have to continue trying to reach younger people with the whole attitude of how we live together in this country.
What are some of the rewards that you felt personally?
You know, the biggest reward I get is when I hear women talk and they know the issues and they know how they feel about the issues. Because our biggest, the biggest thing that we want to do as far as MCCC is concerned is to educate.
Is there anything else that we haven't discussed?
I can't say enough about how we need to get everyone out to vote on this election. I have such fear for our democracy. My issue goes pretty deep into the woods on this, because I am really, really concerned. We went along thinking, oh, isn't this wonderful? We've got this wonderful country and everything works. Well, all we had to do was find someone who threw a wrench in a few things, and we find out there are some really serious problems that we need to probably make some laws rather than just accept the fact that this was always done this way and so it'll continue being done. We have been fortunate that nothing has happened before this time. But now we've got the wake-up call, and we really need to get that message out.
We're talking with Judy Vandenboom.
Yes, you are. After I was elected as secretary, I was secretary for the party for a year. And I served on in a campaign office for a woman, Catherine Lee, who ran for Congress at one time. And after that, I served as campaign office manager for two different candidates, a Republican and a Democrat, for 3 different times, because the Democrat ran twice. And the Republican won, but she was pro-choice. So I was happy to work for her and get her down in Springfield. That was to be first state rep. I've marched in parades with the Democratic Party, and over the years I've had many political letters to the editor printed in the Northwest Herald, and I served 1 year as a precinct committee person. President Eisenhower was up for re-election. Mom and I were very excited about that because he was coming to Chicago for a ticker tape parade. So I spent several hours on a Sunday cutting up the Sunday funnies so that she and I would have, you know, now the word escapes me, yeah, confetti to throw as he passed, which we did. And for that election, I would be 21, old enough to vote, because it wasn't 18, was not in the story yet, just 6 days before the election. That was my first vote, and I have never missed a vote, an election, since then. Even when it's my patriotic duty.
Do you feel there are rewards in taking political action?
Well, the feeling of exhilaration when your candidate wins. I'm very happy to see a lot of women in politics now.
We're talking with Beth Marshall. How old were you when you voted for the first time?
I was 18 the first time I voted. And my dad drove me to the polling place on the way to school because he felt it was something important that I needed to do.
Why did you vote?
I voted because it was ingrained in me that it was part of our responsibility. In order to have a functioning government and a democracy, you needed to have your voice heard. And so voting was just something that was expected. I was expected to participate in, and so I never really even questioned it.
How have you participated in politics yourself?
I think in our family it's just been important to donate to certain political campaigns. Definitely with my husband as a science teacher, environmental groups are very important to us. My oldest son has Down syndrome, so we make sure that our money goes to different groups there as well. We've had campaign signs outside our homes. There have been times for school referendums where we've maybe done some phone calls. But attending any real protests, I think part of that is just because there hasn't really, in Richmond, there haven't been that many opportunities.
What social issues matter most to you?
I think the social issues that matter most would be public education, social services, equality for all. I think it's important for everyone to have a voice and for everyone to have the same opportunities. Within our own home, both my husband and I, like I've said before, we're educators. My middle son is studying to be a science teacher, and even my youngest son is studying to be a social worker. So I think we value social programs and making sure that people have the help that they need to be successful.
Why do you think women should vote?
I think that women need to vote because for too long our voices haven't been heard. And it's now time to make sure that you take responsibility for the world. If you don't like the way that something is happening, then it's your obligation to participate in our democracy and have your voice heard and cast the vote and show the support for whatever you feel strongly about. I think that it's important to not get discouraged. We kind of talk about Illinois is known as as more of a Democratic state, as a Republican state, but I know that we live in a very conservative county. And I think it's just really important to educate yourself, not just believe everything that you see and hear on the news, that you do some research. And kind of, look at the world besides what the world is for you, because not everyone has it as easy, or everyone's life experience is different. But we should be in a country where some things should just be guaranteed rights, and there should be more equity.
Now that we have the privilege to vote, it is up to us to act. Let's get out there on voting day to vote, or vote early at our designated polling places. Encourage your friends and family to vote. You can mail your ballot in, just make sure you do it as early as possible. If you need to register in Illinois, you can register and vote the same day by bringing 2 forms of ID with your name and present address on it when you go to the polling place to vote. Women be heard. Get out and vote. Thank you.